You don't do principles, you live and create under principles, and then you use the techniques to color the principle.
One of the characteristics in editors that I always look for is humility. You have to be able to deliver on do you know the software, technically, and then creatively, can you tell a story? But what about when someone tells you to change it?
A lot of editors feel the principles and they just have it innately, but they can't articulate it.
The clients are part of our team. It's not us versus the clients. It's us versus the challenges of the project itself.
When people are working together where they care for each other and care for their lives outside of the work that they're doing, that shows in the product that's delivered and the way that it's delivered and the attitude of the people that are delivering it.
Welcome to Let's Fix Post, a show about making post-production smoother, smarter, and more collaborative for creative teams and editors alike. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. On today's show, I'm joined by Chad Brown, who after nearly a decade of running his own successful video production company, Shade Tree Films, has now dedicated his work to helping other creatives scale their businesses. Through his company Founder Freedom, Chad now coaches entrepreneurs and filmmakers on how to build successful and sustainable businesses that allow them to thrive in their area of passion without getting stuck in the day-to-day. In this conversation, we explore how Chad's business in video really started after a huge setback that he now views as a positive turning point. We talk about his principles first mentality when making a hire and how he focuses on storytelling rather than just technical expertise when looking at editors. And finally, Chad's advice on trust when it comes to team building and how you really want to surround yourself and build your team up from people that you believe can do the job better than you can. And a funny aside is that Chad and I actually go way, way back. He and Drew were my first clients ever at Shade Tree Films when I started as a freelance video editor back in 2011 or 2012 or so. So I really appreciate the opportunity to catch up with him and pull the curtain back a little bit on our shared history. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that you do too. Let's get into it.
We have such a funny and rich history where you were my first client.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever really knew that, but I had never freelance edited professionally, at least until we started working together. So catch us up on who is Chad? What has he been doing? What are you working on now?
Who is Chad? That's a big question. Most importantly, right now, I'm a gardener. No, I'm just kidding. Not just kidding, but that does consume most of my time and thoughts right now because I'm planting my garden. But I have been in the video production world, I guess, since 2008. 2008 is when my real estate business hit the trash can, and I never wanted to do anything just for money again. I decided at that point, it was a huge loss. And so I was just like, if I could do anything right now, we literally lost everything, our house, our cars. We were renting a condo. We bought an old Volvo station wagon for $2,500 because our credit had just been just decimated by the market downturn. And I just asked myself a question: if I could do anything in the world that I would love, what would it be? And the answer was a resounding video. To tell stories. I had dabbled in it. I had fun. I had owned a couple cameras. I was the president of the filmmaking club in high school. I was just like, this is what I want to do. And I got nothing to lose, which is always in the moment, it's a crappy place to be, to feel that you got nothing to lose. And it's really lends itself well to just diving in and trying something. And so that's what I did, and started a company called Shade Tree Films with one of my buddies, Drew Renner, and we ran full force. We hit that 2009, 2010 when DSLRs were really starting to come alive. People were using it on small production. We could be more nimble. We could come in with budgets that were fractions of what production studios were coming in at. When I talk about this story, I say it was 90% luck and 10% skill.
Well, that was a good 10% though, because you guys were killer.
I just don't think there's been another moment in production like that one, just with the accessibility of equipment. it also collided with the invent and mass adoption of social media. I mean, Facebook was everything at that time, and video was just hitting Facebook, and businesses were like, oh, hey, we could use this and we don't need to pay as much for our production, and we can get it out to people without paying any network fees and blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. So it was just this perfect culmination of elements to come together to make it a magical thing for us. And then I ran Shade Tree Films till 2021. In that time, also got connected to somebody who coached us in our business early on. I think we hired him in 2012. And through that process, I just realized that I loved coaching people. I loved solving business problems. And so the majority of my time in the production world now is coaching filmmakers to build their business in a meaningful way, in a sustainable way, and something that can scale ultimately. So it's been quite, and as you know, Dave, you've been along for most of the ride with little breaks here and there, but it's been quite an evolution for me in this business.
I don't know if I ever knew the like pre-Shade Tree Chad backstory. So like that's kind of like news to me. But man, I feel like that's like you hear that necessity is the mother of invention, or like it's not until you hit rock bottom that you realize this like everywhere but up. And then you realize that you have all these options to go. Why not pick the one that you actually want to do?
Yes.
Like you said, you have nothing to lose. So, I mean, I think the filmmaking community is better for it. So thanks for having been in real estate in 2008.
Yeah.
Super helpful for everybody.
I say it's both the second worst moment of my life and the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of growth. Speaking to our shared history too, like I think I have never done as much travel, like edited in as many weird situations, or the backs of cars, or in little, what was it, like an Airstream sort of thing in New Jersey, where I would step out and immediately want to go back in because the humidity was just like suffocating. Yeah, I did a lot of travel, and that was fun. You guys shot a commercial in my house, and we've been through a lot of interesting situations. So, I mean, a lot of growth.
Yeah, you were the mainstay of our post-production for a lot of years. And ultimately, what I look at is you leveled up our post-production, which was such a crucial part of the growth that we realized and the opportunities that we got.
I appreciate that. And I think that like just having someone in that seat to own that, where like, you had so many other ways to contribute to the growth of the business, both you and Drew, in ways that like I didn't have any part in, nor should I. It's like, kind of that like long-term versus short-term vision.
Yes.
Here we call it like team today and team tomorrow. So like I'm on like team tomorrow, right? Like trying to make new relationships, get sales, like get out there. And team today is like the people who are focusing on like the work we have and making sure that we don't just always go for the next thing. And then meanwhile, we're dropping relationships and clients because we're not putting stock into them. So I think we had a really good like dynamic in that way too, where it's like I just worried about what was right here, and you all were hunting down the next latest and greatest opportunity. So
that's one of the things that I look back on and that we did really well that we actually didn't know we were doing is we had people in very specific seats. Like even though Drew and I were 50-50 partners in the business, he and I had very specific seats that we sat in that business, and they drew on our strengths, and it just happened naturally. It wasn't like we weren't like these crazy business minds that were just like, all right, we got to be in seats and we got to have our roles defined. We just did it. And it kind of just happened that way. And the addition of you, because I think you were our second, I know you weren't an employee, but like you are our second addition to the team, aside of
after who?
After
the assistant, right?
Yeah, we had a couple of assistants that were in there that were booking appointments, booking calls, answering emails, that kind of stuff. I mean, I think when you came on, we were literally in a room that had to have been no bigger than 9 by 9, and there was me, Drew, and our assistant in that room.
I learned like the fundamentals of wedding filmmaking in that tiny room. I remember going up the kind of like curved stairs on the kind of outside, then it went
Yeah.
inside, and then the
Yeah.
long hall of just white doors. And then one of these, I remember going the first time and just being like, if this is how I go, like at least I went trying, you know? Like I don't know what's on the other side of this door, but you know, it worked out obviously. And but yeah, I remember that space well.
I also remember that we hired you or decided to partner up with you off of some examples you sent us that were school projects. One was like a horror video or something like that. I remember that so distinctly.
It had thrilling tones. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thriller is probably a better genre for it. But I do remember reviewing that video with Drew and saying, man, there are fundamentals here that are really going to work. We saw something in those videos, and that's why we proceeded.
Let's talk about that more and make sure to layer in more compliments for me as you talk through this.
I've got plenty more.
Yeah, both of them, right? What do you look for in an editor? Because a lot of times, like, and I face this struggle too when I'm growing my team, right? Is like, okay, you're not doing exactly the work that I'm doing, but I can kind of see it's adjacent, or like you're saying, like, you know, you can borrow some of these fundamentals in there. I think that competes with the school of thought of like, when you hire a designer, they're like, find someone who has done exactly, you know, the style and the look and the brand that you want. So I don't know. Can you, how do you mitigate those?
Well, I think for me, a unique part of like the way that I've always done business, even outside of the video world, is principles first. There's principles and then there's techniques or whatever you want to call them, like very specific things that you do. You don't do principles. You live and create under principles, and then you use the techniques to color the principle. That's how I think about it. And so I was looking for, are the principles in place? Is it story driven? Is there distinct parts of the story that are that classic story arc, you know, intro, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution? Do they have a good understanding of those sections of an edit or a story? And do they navigate them well? Is there good transitions between each of those phases of their story? Do they understand the purpose of each one of those phases of the story? And then, because all of the small things like J&L cutting and blah, 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 all that stuff can be taught. And it's also subjective, right? You can use different techniques at different times and they can do the same job, but the principle has to be there, or it's not going to be that emotionally driven story that needs to be that people are hiring you for, right? To either drive emotion or action or any of that sort of stuff. So for me, it was always a very principle. Now, Drew and I, this is where our roles differed, which was really great. It actually ended up working really well because I could see the principle. I could see and name. That's the other thing, is a lot of editors feel the principles and they just have it innately, but they can't articulate it and they can't talk about it specifically and why they did this thing under principle. And that was very much my role in the partnership. Drew was very much the technique guy. He was very specific, very good at the details of the techniques that could plug into the principles of the storytelling. And so, again, not by any brilliance on our part, that just so happened to be how it fell, right? And so when we were editing with you, Dave, or on a project, to me, my focus was, any feedback I ever gave was usually pretty principle based. Why are we doing this? Can we get to the rising action quicker? Is the hook in the intro is not quite there, whatever, that sort of thing. And Drew would really drill into the detail about can we JL cut here? Can we, blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. So especially for filmmakers who are hiring editors, I think it's good for them to get very literate in communicating and understanding the principles of storytelling and editing along with the technique, because so many are drawn, I think, directly to the technique. Those are the easiest things to converse about and to manipulate.
I feel like it starts to also run parallel to like when you hire an employee in any role, right? Where you're like, there's the things that are innate and there's the things that you can teach.
Yes.
and knowing what you can and can't teach. Like it has similar vibes to that. Was that kind of how you think about it too?
Absolutely. This is so weird. So now in my post-production company owning life, I've now consulted with like large companies, tech companies. I've been brought in as a fractional leader of people, coach to leadership teams, all that sort of stuff. And this concept has served me in those realms because it's actually universal. And now as I'm like tasked to hire a certain executive or to put together a team for a certain department, I know that principles first. What's the attitude that we're looking for? What is the cultural fit? What is the willingness to like have conversation about the way they behave and feedback and like all of that sort of stuff? And that's way more concrete, way more, I don't want to say important because obviously the details and the tasks are important, but pretty much everybody that's looking to come on any team or apply for any role, they know how to do what they're doing. Like they know how to do the thing that they're applying for. That's not really the question. That's competence, right? What makes the difference is, are they open? Are they willing to see how they think and question that and have conversations about that? And that's very much the experience of being willing to pick apart or be in tune with also how do we tell a story and how do we apply the principles that are there. I found it be very universal, even as being a dad, like teaching my children what are principles and what are tasks. Like a principle that I'm working on with my 12 or 11-year-old son is that if he sees something around the house that needs to be done that he can participate in or initiate, do that, like initiate it, jump in, be that engine rather than being the task carry outer where I have to tell him everything to do. That's further than competency. That's being willing to pay attention to what matters or the core of the foundation of what we're doing here as a family. So I just see it all over the place.
Yeah. And I would feel like in a child setting too, that's a pretty pivotal fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to be the one that's like, able to see beyond what's presented to you or what's asked of you and to take the initiative and do it? Or are you going to be the order taker? Because society has a place for both.
Yeah,
and you
that's
get
right.
to decide which one are you going to be in.
That's right. Are you going to participate in a way that you pick up the dog poop when you're told to? Or are you going to participate in a way that you walk through the backyard, see that there's dog poop and go grab a bag and pick it up?
No, that's super helpful. I think that one of the characteristics in editors that I always look for is humility. Mm-hmm. Right. Like you have to be able to execute, like you said, and like deliver on like, do you know the software, technically, and then creatively, like, can you tell a story? But like, what about when someone tells you to change it? Are you going to be so married to that you can't let go? Or are you going to recognize that, this is a team effort, whether that's the team is like internally like ours or like a team being with a client? I think a good mindset that I've, tried to have editors adopt is like, the clients are part of our team. It's not us versus the clients or the editor versus the client. It's us versus against the challenges of the project itself.
That took me so many years to learn. I can't tell you how many years I spent being angry when the client came back with revisions and wanted to do what I deemed as stupid things to the edit. You're just hitting on like a huge source of discontent for me for a really long time. And I I chose to shift my mindset from I'm the creative, I know everything, I know exactly how this is supposed to be, to we're a team and I've created a lot of value in this edit. And then there's just some things that they want to see the way that they want to see them, whether it's the right way or whether it's the effective way. That didn't matter. Their contribution was just as, not just as valid, but if I didn't see it as just as valid, then I would drive myself crazy being concerned with it, right?
It's a tough mental game to play where you have to get super invested in what you're building, because so much of what we do is like passion fueled and like mind game fueled. Like, when I was editing more consistently as an editor myself, like I had to be like all in on the
Mhm.
project, right? Like I had to care a lot. And I would go out of my way to fix little things where it's like, oh, there's a reflection, but this is before they had like the auto erase tools. I'm like, oh, there's a reflection. Let me grab another piece of the window and mask it over. It's because then you won't see the tripod leg in the back or whatever, right? I don't know. I just always felt I had to care to that level. But then it's like you have to just like cut that tie when you give it to the client and recognize that it's not your project. Truly, right? There's so many, I think, parallels with like having children. Now that I have kids, it's like I can see all of these different things, but I don't know. What do you do with that?
Well, first off, I remember very distinctly the first time you delivered an edit to us, and you had manipulated something in the background in that same way. You had cropped out something or a different angle or something, and it took out something that maybe we noticed it, maybe we did. I don't even remember if we noticed it, but our minds were blown when you did that. We're like, holy crap, that's amazing. And it's just, I mean, it's a testament to what makes you so good at what you do, is that detail oriented and that wanting to make it right. That's to me, that's how it shows up for you. It's not like a show off thing, or it's not, but let's make this right. If we're going to do this, let's do it well. And anyway, so you asked for the compliments to keep coming, and I told you I have.
Right, we're almost
plenty.
up to quota.
Yeah, we're up to quota. As far as what do I do with that, for me, the transition was once it was in the client's hands, they're now the director, and that's the nature of the relationship. And so if I want to get paid to do this thing, and I want to get paid well, and I want to have repeating clients, and I want to have good relationships, that's the mentality. I have no other option than to adopt that mentality. Once it leaves our desk, once it leaves the editing bay, they're now in control. And that's how it is. And I'm going to agree with some things, and I'm going to disagree with some things. And honestly, I think, to be completely honest, I think there was probably a good amount of feedback that was legitimate feedback, and I just didn't like it because it wasn't my idea. And that was an interesting realization too, which is like, their feedback didn't ruin the edit, didn't ruin the story, didn't do any of that, but I'm pissed off about it because it wasn't mine. And when when I sent it over to them, they weren't just like, oh, perfect, let's go.
Yeah, I could count the number of times that happened on one hand, right?
One finger.
Yeah, there was that one time. Oh, wait, I did that for myself. Yeah. So, okay, so let's take that now and switch hats. Now you're the one that has to give the feedback. So now you know what it feels like, or at least your version of what sitting in that seat feels like. How has that, or has it, shaped the way that you then give feedback?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, for sure. To me, the feedback process is more of a collaborative conversation, because I'm hiring people that I trust, that are professionals. I think that is colored from my experience of being on the other end of it, is that I'm not going to hire somebody that I don't trust to do a really good job on this thing. Secondly is like, I want to hear their perspective. I want to hear why they did this. I do this exercise with my clients, which is I'll grab like an object like this, right? And I'll hold it up in front of me, and I'll say, okay, describe this object. And if you described it, I mean, not using the name of it, but how would you describe it? Like just give a description of it.
Me,
Yeah.
personally?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say it's a camera that is a leather exterior case to it, several knobs and dials, and a lens. I'm also not the camera guy, so
so without
two viewfinders,
using the name of it, right? You would say, oh, it actually, it's fine if you use the name of it. But if I were to describe it from my perspective looks like this.
Oh,
so
sure.
I would be describing it as like a rectangular box that has some depth to it. It's mostly brown. It has some stitching. There's a few window holes up at the top that looks like you could look through them, and you would be describing it of, there's a bunch of circles. It's mostly black. There's there's some reels and some numbers. And if this is just an exercise to illustrate that oftentimes we're looking at the same problem. We're looking at the same challenge or the same thing with two different perspectives. So when I'm giving feedback on something that somebody has edited for me, I'm curious to get around it and come to shoulder with them to see how they're looking at it, what perspective they have on it. And then I'm going to invite them to come and look at it from my perspective, because there's things that I'm considering about the project that they just don't understand. They don't have that perspective. They don't have that background. Maybe they don't have that information. Same thing on my end. There may be things in the footage or the edit or certain things that I don't understand were there, and they couldn't use that certain thing or that, So for me, it's much more of, hey, can we collaborate? Can this be a conversation of creation together rather than a list of orders that I'm going to give out?
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing this on the other end, when I was providing video for clients, I got really good at inviting them into that conversation with me. And the way that I did that is I would first, because I was the one understanding that we were having different perspectives of it, I would go shoulder to shoulder with them first. And I will say, okay, help me understand what this edit drives. What are you thinking? What am I missing? What did I not understand when we did it this way? So that they can fully explain themselves. And often, if I'm open, if I'm sincere in it, if I'm open, I'm going to see things much clearer from their perspective and start considering the considerations that they have. Right? And then I can invite them over to my seat and say, well, now here's what we're looking at. Here's the assets that we have from a story-driven perspective. These are the things that would work and wouldn't work, and here's why. So it's really that exercise of like coming shoulder to shoulder, getting around the object and looking at it together.
In theory, I'm like, I love all of this. In practicality, I'm like, not every client on the other side of the table is going to be willing to come out of where their shoulders are and come put them next to where yours are.
Yep.
So, I mean, have you ever been in that situation where
just 100%.
will not?
Yeah, 100%. And I tried. Like I did my best to have it be a collaboration, a collaborative conversation. If they're not into it, if they're not open, one thing you can't force anybody to do is be open to something. That's a decision each individual. You can invite them, you can enroll them, you can, all of that sort of stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to them. Are they going to be open to this or are they not going to be open to this? And nothing I can do about that. So would we take orders? Sure. Yeah.
If it gets to that point, right? After you exhaust the other potentials.
Yeah. And as long as the orders can actually be carried out. I mean, God knows we got so many pieces of feedback that were just outlandish. That was just like, what do you think we were filming?
Yeah.
Or when do you think that happened?
Yeah. You were at the same shoot that I was, right? I mean, that's probably a whole other conversation around unrealistic expectations. I guess like looking back to when, well, I don't even know if I should ask this. Was I your first editor that you worked with, or had you worked with others?
Yeah, you were our first.
Okay, well then I'll speak from a place of comfort then, confidence. So looking back to when we had started, what is something that you wish you had known about working with an editor that you know now?
Oh my gosh, so many. So many. You could probably give that list better than I could. Like
my memory is not so great at this age.
All the mistakes we made, probably you could outline better than I could. But the ones that I know of. All right. So what do I wish I know? I wish I would have been much clearer in my communication. I wish I would have actually thought about how I want to communicate with my team members, and also consider. This is going to sound really bad, man, but I just consider them as human beings and living a life that's outside of this work that we're doing, and to really see them as holistic. I know how this sounds, but I whatever. I've reconciled it, and I'm, hopefully doing a much better job these days.
We're here today.
Yeah, exactly. To converse with them, communicate with them, to be clear, to ask if I am being clear in my communication, if they understand, if I understand what they're communicating to me, right? When something is said, and that I get clarity on that. I wish we would have had much better SOPs and descriptions of what was expected. I wish it would have been way more detailed in outlining different projects and what was expected in those projects. We could have avoided so many headaches and doubled up work and all of that sort of stuff. So organizationally, I wish we would have, I don't know why I say I wish, we learned to be much more, I learned to be much more organized, much more clear in my communication, ask for clarity, ask for understanding, be willing to admit when I'm wrong. That was a big one, as you can clearly see illustrated by my stubbornness with clients as well. So, and then ultimately to invest in a relationship as human to human, rather than I get something from you, and the thing I get from you, I pay you for. There's so much more beyond that. And I actually think that it shows in the product when people are working together with a relationship that's where they care for each other and care for their lives outside of the work that they're doing. That shows in the product that's delivered, and the way that it's delivered, and the attitude of the people that are delivering it. And we just did a really poor job at that in many, many ways early on. I can remember particularly we had an editor that was in-house, and at one point she just cried. And we didn't know what was going on. And we asked her what was going on. And she said, well, I wish we could, like, all we do every single day, day in and day out, is we just come in here and we just put our headphones on and we just edit and work. And there's nothing outside of that, and it's wearing on me. And to me at that moment, that was like one of the best teaching moments as a leader of both a team and a project, of that there needs to be fun. There needs to be human element to it. There needs to be something that you're looking forward to, not just edit in, edit out, edit in, edit out. So I don't know, man, I could go on for days and days of the lessons that I've learned, and what I would do differently now.
I mean, I think I can definitely appreciate the position that you and Drew were in back then, like more so recently, or like, since I've started doing a company and everything, right? Like, it's this tough mental thing to break out of, where you're like, I have this conversation with a client or a prospect, someone that has a need, right? And my job is to fulfill the need. And so then it's like, by extension, the team members who are fulfilling it are now like, have this danger of becoming the means to an end of fulfilling that. And it's like, on one hand, like, yes, they are a resource, like a human resource that is being, their skills are being used to execute on that vision, but not getting so narrow-minded in that to be like, that's all they are.
Yeah.
And
yes,
leaving room for a relationship and time outside of work. I think that's a good takeaway for me, is like, that matters, and it's tough to get out of the grind, dude. Like,
yeah,
we're all right there.
Yep.
We kind of talked through revisions and some of the communication pieces, but like, anything along the journey of starting a project that kind of caught you off guard?
It's been so long. One thing I can realize that it's very distinct from my experience is there used to be very little prep work that went into our projects, and we were running gun, man, and whatever we got, then we would bring it back to the bay, and then we would put the pieces together, and somehow it worked out pretty well. But over the years, I realized how much better it could be with just a little bit of planning, a little bit of foresight, a little bit of here's what we want to get, here's how we want to get it, and here's how we want the transitions to look, and all of that sort of stuff. And I think once we started discovering that we could do a little bit more work on the front end of it to make the back end so much smoother, and the product was improved significantly. That was a huge realization for me.
So who's in that conversation then, in that scenario? Like, who are the people planning out the way it's going to go?
Definitely the producer or the director. I usually wore both those hats, producing and directing, and cinematographer, obviously, camera operator, post-production head is a crucial person to have in that conversation as well, because if they're involved in that, not only do they know what's expected, have a clearer vision of what's expected going into post, they can also offer a lot of really great ideas, or things that we didn't even think about in our smaller mind. And then obviously the client. I started not technically, like I would never include the client in a conversation of like, and here's how we're going to do the transitions, that sort of thing. But definitely getting storyline approval before we go into production was a huge discovery for me. Because then I always have a vision to come back to in case they want to do something weird or crazy or off scope. Like, I can't tell you how many times we set a project, but we didn't get approval on the storyline beforehand, and we're on location and they're like, hey, let's shoot this thing. And you're like, that has nothing to do with the thing that we're creating. And having approval on that storyline and shot list and all that sort of stuff ahead of time gave me the leverage to say, that doesn't fit in what we planned. Can you tell me why you want to go shoot that? And here's the shot list you agreed to. Here's the storyline that you agreed to. I don't see where that fits in. Help me understand, because if not, we need to proceed with the plan, because time is precious. That's been I think that's been a big discovery for me.
Yeah, I think being in the post seat, one of the things that we are pushing for more in the relationships that we're in, and I think one of the big messages of this channel is involve the editor early. Right? Like it almost feels like, not almost, a lot of the engagements we get in, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, we do have to edit this. all these decisions were made, all these things were planned out, but then it's like, oh yeah, none of it was with the actual end product in mind. That shows up for budget too. That's probably a whole other conversation, is like, working with solopreneurs, it's like, well, how much do you budget for post? It's like, oh, I don't really. It's like, what? you don't budget for your own time for so then any amount of bringing in outside help feels insurmountable, because it was all money you weren't planning to set aside. Again, huge tangent there, but I think just getting aligned on the vision for the end product as early as possible. And, I think post offers a perspective of challenges that could come up, like, oh, I see, sounds like you want to have, a green screen. Like, we should probably have the VFX guy give some tips on how that layout's going to look so that it goes through correctly. Or, have you considered maybe we could use stock footage instead of building in an entire additional shoot day, or, stuff around creative problem solving right early on. I think that's one of the things that we're trying to advocate for post-production.
Yeah. One of the first projects that we did this really well on, collaborating with you, as in the post seat, and just really getting clear on what it is that we were creating, was the Ontario City piece. And it actually came out of necessity, because if I remember right, we had something like 20 locations for that.
Yeah, it was no joke.
Yeah. With that level of location set and all the shots that we needed and how they were going to come together, we really had no choice to get to very specific about what we needed and what we didn't. And so I think sometimes this is discovered by necessity, and then once you experience it, like that collaboration with your post team, and it to me, it's like the only way to go.
The other fun byproduct of that was that I think we identified early on that sound design, the sound design of all these locations and activities is going to be huge to really selling this thing. And so then, we were on the lookout for opportunities. And I think you all probably even shot like audio specific stuff, like with a boom. I don't know if one of you had a boom, but I know there were the girls like waxing the surfboards. You hear that like, or the waxing and all that. And, that was a fun project, but a beast. It was like so much to it. It was like, you must have been shooting like 4 or 5 days, like all over SoCal.
Yep.
Mountains, beach, the vineyards, the towns, all that stuff.
Yep.
Hockey game, all that. That was cool.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Yeah. This has been awesome. I want to ask you one final question, if that's okay. If you could offer advice to anybody who was starting their first collaboration with an editor or a post-production house, what would that be?
Can I take it one step back?
Yeah.
So I'll answer that question. I will. But the first step is this isn't going to be a surprise to you because you now are pretty familiar with my work and the coaching that I do with filmmakers. But the one thing that I would want to leave anybody listening to this with is that there's somebody that can do it better than you. As an owner of a business, as an entrepreneur, I know you've built this thing, you've done every piece of it, and if you want to grow it, if you want to scale it, if you want it to be something more than it is today, you have to realize there's somebody out there that can do it better than you, and that includes editing. So the question doesn't become, who can I get to edit this? The question becomes, who could edit this better than I could? And if you hire and enter in relationships with that frame of mind, you will not only you will up level the product that you're giving to your clients, but you also have a really rich collaborative relationship with whoever you end up hiring for the post-production. So that's kind of like one step before, if you're not considering it, if you're holding on to it, all of that sort of stuff. Now, actually going into the relationship, trust them. Trust them. Trust that you have picked somebody. If you honestly believe this, trust that you've picked somebody who could do it better than you, and let them do their work. And then, of course, if there needs to be a collaborative revision process, do that. But the biggest mistake I see, and I'm telling, like I work day in and day out with filmmakers trying to scale their business, and one of the biggest mistakes I see them make is they bring somebody on their team that they don't trust to do it better than them, and so it actually becomes more work for them to have somebody on their team, and they're so confused by it. They're like, "Oh, but I hired somebody. Why do I still do so much work?" And it's because you didn't hire somebody that you absolutely trust, and then you don't release that trust to them. So that would be my encouragement.
That's huge. I appreciate that. Well put. So if people want to find out more about you, follow you, or participate in this filmmaker, community, or reap the benefits of the coaching that you do, how do people reach out?
For better or worse, business wise, I don't really do the socials anymore. I do a little bit of LinkedIn. Like I'll jump on there about once a week. So connecting to me on LinkedIn will eventually get to me, but you could email me. I do check my inbox. It's chad@chadlbrown.com. My website is founder-freedom.com. And there's some free resources on founder-freedom.com they can check out. Particularly my scalable masterclass is probably the best place to check out if you're interested in how I teach people how to scale their creative business.
That's great. And having recently gone through your accelerator program, 10 out of 10,
yeah,
highly recommend. So put that on your website, or figure out some way that I can get you some testimonial material there. But yeah, highly recommend working with Chad. So grateful to have had you join me for this little chat today. And look forward to keeping the conversation going.
Well, and I'm going to repay the compliment is I highly recommend working with you, Dave. And we had a conversation earlier today. I don't know if you'll cut this out or not, but we had a conversation today, and you are my number one referral for this area. post-production area, because you've worked so long, like 9 years. Have you been in business 9 years?
11.
11 years to perfect your systems and to take care of the client. And most importantly, I see how I've gotten more of an intimate view of you as a business owner and a team leader, and the attention that you put in giving a quality product for your clients and taking care of them and seeing them as holistic systems, not just clients. It doesn't compare. So, I highly, highly recommend people use Archaius as well.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that means a lot. And just trying to do it right. How do they usually end these things?
You drop the mic, or you pour one out for the homies, or
Oh man, are we dating ourselves with that? I don't know.
Thanks again for joining Chad and I in our conversation. I always enjoy his perspective on all things creative. We'll be sure to include Chad's contact info in the show notes. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. This has been Let's Fix Post.